From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. The Broncos have made some moves on their roster, releasing Glasgow, Ronald Darby, as well as Chase Edmonds, basically freeing up in the neighborhood of about $25 million or so in cap space with those moves. So, with those moves, we now have a bit of an indication, I think, in some parts, on the direction they're going to be heading in free agency.
Well, yeah, and they're going to spend. We know they're going to spend along the offensive line, too. Those moves were not entirely unexpected. In fact, they were very expected. Outside of Ron Darby, thought they might try to restructure that, keep him around, but in the end, just decided to move on. I think it indicates that there's going to be some major turnover coming to this football team along the roster. And it's not just the start with those three. It starts with, hey, we're freeing up the money to bring in the people that we want at some of these other positions. Whether they're able to retain Draymond Jones or not, or have to go out and get maybe a Zach Allen in free agency. And then we're going to see, a lot of additions along the offensive line and probably one speed receiver at some point.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a bit of an indication. I think you brought it up right there. One of the first things I thought with both Darby and Glasgow was a consideration maybe of a restructure there. But when you bring in a new coaching staff, and certainly when you're a 5-win team, things like this are going to happen. You're going to take a look at your roster and say, we can get better. The metrics for the offensive line, the metrics for the offense in general, just weren't good enough really to sit there and say, oh, well, you absolutely have to have this one guy. If you're not already under contract for a reasonable value, in this case where Glasgow didn't have any guaranteed money left, then it's pretty simple. It's basically, again, a bit of a math equation at that point.
Yeah, and I think that the way that they're doing this isn't building around anybody. It's just raising the level of talent. We're going to move on from these. We're going to go out there and we're going to add and raise the level of talent and go from there. And so I think that, you look at the players that they let go, like you said, Glasgow, I mean, was he a part of the future of the Denver Broncos? Not really. I thought he was a good signing.
He's a good player, though,
I thought he did well for the Denver Broncos, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed talking to him every time we got a chance to talk to him. I thought Ron Darby was the one exception, as I alluded to before, that I really felt like, that means you got a lot of faith in Damari Mathis. I mean, it does. And I thought Damari flashed quite a bit last year. I thought his opening game was rough, but he got a lot better from there. I just don't know that I would have the stones to call that my guy at number 2 corner right now. Do I think he can be that eventually? Absolutely. Do I think he's there right now? No, I don't.
Yeah, and Ronald Darby's another one. You save about $3 million dead on there, so you're saving about $9.5 million towards the cap. So I kind of agree with you on that one because it's a position that you feel like you could always use more talent at, and certainly you can draft, but you got 5 guys, right? You got 5 draft picks, and you can split those up, and maybe you can add some more. But the point is Ronald Darby at least win healthy. That's always the thing with him. When healthy, he is a reliable cornerback, and maybe a bit underrated, honestly. So I'm all in on Damari Mathis taking even another step forward. But just in case, because sometimes that happens for second-year players, I would like some insurance there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think that they're going to have to look into that because K1 is a very role-specific, kind of player. Right. And out of the slot, and they really don't have a lot of depth beyond that. They didn't tender, not going to tender to Sang Bassi. So, what else do you have beyond there? Some down roster guys like Lamar Jackson. That's about it.
Yeah, I know. So that was one, I think, I say surprise. It's not surprise. It's just more of we knew that would be a contract that's looked at, and certainly they feel like they're going to be okay there. We already talked about the offensive line, heavy investment expected there along the offensive line. Glasgow, just very quickly on him, just my take on it. I thought he was a very nice player for the Broncos. Versatility was important. Could play the guard or the center position. But again, you have Quinn Miners here. You probably make a decision there at the other guard spot. And then Lloyd Cushenberry. Maybe the Broncos, this is a bit of an indication that they might be willing to roll with him for another year at least.
Give him one more shot, perhaps. Obviously Sean Payton is going to be familiar with Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd was at LSU when Sean was down at New Orleans, so he's going to be very familiar with his game. Maybe giving him one more shot in this offense, maybe it turns things around for Lloyd.
Yeah, I certainly can understand that. All right, let's get to Chase Edmonds because the running back room is very interesting right now. Assuming you get Javonte back right off the bat, that would be great, and then you're not too worried. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that it takes a little bit of time for him to get up to speed. So, and that's something you've been reporting on. I'll give you credit. You've been reporting on for a while that Javonte will not be ready for the start of the season. So right now, your running back room, in some form or fashion, Javonte Williams, Tyler Beatty, Divine Ezigbo, guys that are futures contracts, guys that you could bring in at any given point. That's about it. So Chase Edmonds, for me, I thought could have been interesting in a bit of an Alvin Kamara kind of role, especially early on in the season. Again, he's had a hard time staying healthy too. But I could also understand the other side of it, saving nearly $6 million in cap space with moving on.
Yeah, they needed the money. They wanted him back, though. I mean, George Payton told us in no uncertain terms they wanted him back when we were up there at the Combine. And I'm not sure that the door is closed on a return for him. I do believe Latavius Murray will join this roster at some point, and they'll probably draft a running back on top of all that. Do they go out there and get another one, a Kareem Hunt or David Montgomery? Possible. It'll be interesting to kind of see because they still have a few things they've got to do. You know, they've got to go out there and, like I said, they've got to shore up some things on the offensive, defensive line. They've got to get an inside backer, probably another corner. And so where do you go from there? Knowing that you have to have these things solved before you get to the draft and go from there. So, I think Kareem Hunt could be in play here. Just depends on the price tag and, how far down he drops in free agency. Won't be a wave one thing.
No, and it's interesting always during the course of the legal tampering period, which we could talk about for a second, but the legal tampering period, what we consider wave one, wave two, so on and so forth, you have runs on players, right? I mean, you'll have a run on offensive line. You'll have a run eventually on running backs and wide receivers, right? Linebackers, defensive line. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with just the market and what's out there, right? So that's something that we'll be obviously monitoring. And then for the Broncos, they want to be in the front end of that market. For some positions, they might be. Some other positions, they might want to wait a little bit and see how the market sort of sets itself before kind of putting an opening number out there.
Yeah, no, and that is the thing. I think that they want to be aggressive in addressing things that they know they need to address, and then kind of value searchers for the rest of it.
Yeah, which makes a ton of sense, and it's a very prudent way to sort of attack it. But again, just as a little bit of a note here, programming note, when next time we do Broncos Country Tonight, it'll be after the new league year has begun. Right. So I get a chance to really talk about these these acquisitions officially, because right now none of it's official. None of it is signed on the dotted line. It's all reports until then, and right now we can only report on what we know.
Yeah, and things can change. I mean, we saw was it Frank Gore, I think, was going to sign with the Eagles.
Seen that before, yeah.
We've seen it before. Guys pivot, so.
Yeah. All right. So obviously, like I said, the next episode of Broncos Country Tonight will be after the new league year, 2:00 on Wednesday. We'll break down all the moves the Broncos have made in free agency. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.
Denver's going to win it! You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.